This is the real, the fake, and all the filler in between. We're gonna talk about botulinum toxin. This is also AKA Room 8. This is where we talk about we talk about everything here when it comes to the industry, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to business, whether it comes to pop culture and society influence on what we're doing. So today I wanted to talk about botulinum toxin, and I'm going to start off straight off the bat. Botulinum toxin is the most potent toxin on the planet.
Mm-hmm. The most potent toxin in the planet?
Yeah.
For real?
Swear to God. Did you know that?
I did not know that. So we're literally administrating the most potent toxin in the planet.
Yes. Now that sounds super scary, right?
Super.
They want to know if you're a doctor. I'm
a board certified registered nurse anesthetist. And to my right, I have Robert Sapero, who's our COO. He's our Chief Operating Officer. And then I have Katarina Medeiros. She's our all of above. She does everything.
We were talking about it. I was talking with Sebas. I was like, he's like drone pilot,
AKA web designer,
editor, chauffeur,
social media influencer,
assistant.
Totally. Now the reason why I say that it's the most I bring to light that it's the most potent toxin on the planet is because I want you to look at it from a different perspective. In the sense where every time we've ever had something bad happen, like mold, for instance, it was from mold that we developed penicillin, which is the most common antibiotic that we use for over 100 years. People used to die of this awful bacterial infections. They used to become septic. But we take something, and I think that's so beautiful, like of our race. We take something and we're like, okay, we look at it, and the first discovery of botulinum toxin was in 1780.
And what was the first use for it?
The first use for it,
like, was it straight aesthetics from the beginning, or
it was the first use for it on a person. Was there was a plastic surgeon in San Francisco who was doing a facelift, and he cut the facial nerve or a motor component so that the person had like a facial droop, and instead of cutting the other side, what he did was he relaxed it with botulinum toxin in hopes that it would look more symmetrical until that nerve regenerated, until it anastomosed. So that's as far as I can recall. But I think there was a whole bunch of other things that happened before then. So 1780, right? How many years is that? Like 2,000 years?
Really quick, 2000? I have someone on here.
1780?
No, is that 100 years? 200?
300.
300 years?
Really quick, I have someone on here saying, why are you giving out medical advice? You know you legally can't, my man.
Absolutely, I can. I'm a board certified.
He says nurses cannot give medical advice. He took an oath.
I'm a board certified registered nurse anesthetist. And I'm not giving away medical advice. I'm talking about the history of botulinum toxin. Okay, so 1780, they discover it because if people go to a funeral and everyone's eating these sausages and they die. So it wasn't, and then 100 years pass again, and it was John Mueller, who was a physician, discovers the strand, and he's also this poet, discovers the strand and starts researching about it. That's that was like 1890. 1905 comes, and the canning industry starts to happen, right? We start shipping goods across the country. This was a multi-billion-dollar operation. But it was almost crippled by botulinum toxin because botulinum toxin was starting to ferment underneath the cans. This toxin likes to live in anaerobic environments, meaning environments that don't have any air. So because it's sealed, people were getting botulinum toxin. That's why you don't give like honey to babies. They're not able to process it.
Really?
Yeah. So it was actually someone found, it was actually a veterinarian. He found a way to extract the botulinum toxin and also prevent it from growing. And then with time, now we started to use it in strabismus.
So they're able to isolate it and preserve it to a point where now we can use it.
Yeah. So, and then Then they started using it in surgery, right, for strabismus. Basically, the muscles, there you have like four main muscles of the eye, right? Think of it like reins on a horse. And then you have like, you want it to pull this way, the horse, you pull the left rein, it goes to the left. You pull to the right, same thing with the eye. So you're having, what they were doing is when you have strabismus, one of those muscles are super tight. So what they would do is they would relax it and it would stretch out. Now the thing is, when they stretched it out, the other muscle would pull, right? And it would have that tension, and it would cause this muscle to kind of stay like that for a long time. So that was the first discovery of, okay, we can actually, instead of surgery, we can use it in a non-invasive way.
Yep.
Right.
And that started that roller coaster effect. We're using it in a non-invasive way, right? We can relax muscles, which can relax the wrinkles on top.
Which is where I feel medicine is going. I mean, everything is non-invasive, non-surgical. We're looking constantly for new ways to do these, alternatives to these surgical procedures that require, putting yourself at risk for infection, for, for so many things to go wrong.
Non-surgically. No, it's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. People want a more non-invasive way of managing their aging process. And that's where botulinum toxin came into play. So for the guy who's saying that I can't give medical advice, I'm actually speaking at AmSpa in Vegas if you want to come see me. I'm going to be talking about botulinum toxin. So in 2002, it gets FDA approved. That's Botox, right? For the glabellar, meaning in between the eyebrows.
The 11, right? That's
right.
When you make a mad face.
Right. And they found that these people that were getting this done, they were suffering from less migraine headaches. And that's when they started to see that there was more indications for it. And Times Magazine pulled out an article about 2 years ago talking about there's over 100 indications, medical indications and aesthetic applications for botulinum toxin. Now they're seeing it, how it disrupts, because the way it works is it blocks the main neurotransmitter from the presynaptic cleft, so it activates the muscle. That's the main neurotransmitter. So they're seeing that it works with certain hormones and neurotransmitters, and they're starting to use it in depression. They're starting to use it for erectile dysfunction. They've been using it for spasticity. People who have twitches and Parkinsonism. So I think this is just a future. I think this is what people are starting to see, like, hey, this is why it's becoming destigmatized. And the fact that we can use it to relax the jaw. Now we're using it not even for wrinkles, we're using it to actually for facial enhancement.
Facial balancing.
Which is cool, yeah. So I think that's where people need to come at, and I think they're slowly getting there when they realize, oh, wait, penicillin came from mold, and that's one of the most common antibiotics that are prescribed in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that you're going to see that it is going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, it is the most potent toxin in the world, but in order, for me to kill somebody with this toxin, I would need about, I think the lethal dose, the LD50 is, I think 5,000 units.
And what does that convert to in milliliters? Is that divided by 3?
Well, it depends on how you reconstitute it, but we don't even store that amount
here in the office.
And unless I had double or triple the amount, and then something happened and all the glass vials broke because Kat was singing, and now the spore is in the air and I'm inhaling it, then yeah, you can get into some
hilarious.
You can get into some issues.
Nice. I mean, I think it's incredible. I really think how something, like you said, the most toxic toxin on the planet can be turned into something that is changing lives. It's adding confidence. It's really going from a negative to a positive. I think that's beautiful, and I think that's what the aesthetic industry is about. It's transforming people's insecurities into confidence. It's changing people, what they don't like about themselves into what they're most proud of showing off. So it's great.
I think you got to have an open mind when you start to talk about botulinum toxin, or any other form of medicine. Like, if you look at fillers were created during the epidemic of HIV. Like in the 80s and the 90s, And because these people were getting really ill and they were becoming cachectic.
And
they had like that wasting syndrome. So they needed a filler. Filler was met to replenish the fat pads that they had lost. And now I mean, that's the 90s. Now we're in, 20 years plus. Now we're using it. We're sick the way we use it. We're sharpshooters. The way we can enhance someone's look without, I can enhance your jawline, make it look more masculine. Before, you would have surgery. Your mouth is going to be wired shut. Your recovery is going to be 3 months until you're going to be fully functional. And it's probably still healing for a year. That's not even including the risk that you take going under anesthesia, which is why I left that anesthesia world, because I saw where medicine is going. Everything is becoming more non-invasive. Even big surgeries like hearts, like they're not putting people completely under general anesthesia because why? They're sicker, so there's more of a chance of something happening. So they're finding ways that they can, put a valve in under sedation or do an ablation under sedation. They're not putting you to sleep.
Yeah. I think, even in like orthopedics, you're seeing knee replacements, shoulder replacements being, replaced with people willing to do regenerative medicine, utilizing super vesicles, things that are stimulating your own stem cells to heal and give you, even if you prolong it, So I think non-invasive is the trend of the future where medicine is heading. And I feel like this industry is going to spearhead that.
Oh, totally. This is so fun. This is growing exponentially.
Yeah.
And I think it's I think social media has a strong influence on that. You have more people that are willing to talk about it than ever before.
Yeah.
You have people who are coming out like the Kardashians and these strong influencers who are like, yeah, I get it done. And what? And now we're starting to see why people are coming in as couples, why people are bringing in their kids who have been in car accidents, have multiple rhinoplasties, like nose jobs, surgically, house fires, and we're using this little bit of gel, and it's changing this person's life.
By millimeters.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's a game of millimeters.
Nice.
I love it.
All right. What else? I mean, as far as, everybody says Botox, right? Everybody says botulinum toxin. What is it that Botox has kind of taken over that market? Why is it that everybody says Botox?
Well,
there's so many different botulinum toxins in the market, not just Botox, So I think that's a huge misconception, probably one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people come. They even think like fillers is Botox. I want Botox on my lips. No,
I know, that's true. Yeah.
You want filler.
It's still in its infancy stages because people are still requesting, they're like, I want Botox for these lines, and you don't put Botox there. And then there's this saying, Botox. Well, Botox is a brand. That's like saying, I need Pampers for my kids.
Yeah, they label it for
diapers.
everything.
That's what you're looking for? Or Kleenex.
Yeah,
I need a tissue paper.
Yeah.
Botox is a brand. Botulinum toxin is the spore, the bacteria that causes the relaxation of these muscles.
And then what's the difference between the brands? What is there cleaner versions? Is there versions that have, what's the biggest difference between, these pharmaceutical companies that each have their own botulinum toxin?
The formulation's a little bit different for all of them. For instance, Botox, Dysport, and Xeomin, they have different molecular complexes, but like for Xeomin, for instance, it's a newer product that's on the market, but it's amazing. It's awesome. It's like a smart toxin, but nobody refers to it. First of all, I don't even like the name. It sounds like semen, right? You say it quick enough? Yeah. Xeomin.
Sounds like semen.
Yeah.
So they're saying it in an accent. Semen.
I know. And so people, I think it's easier to roll off the tongue to say Botox, but it's a uniquely purified neurotoxin. It goes through a double purification. And if you look at the molecular complex of it, the active ingredient in botulinum toxin, or let's say like Botox, Dysport, and Xeomin, it's about, the weight of it is about 150 kilodaltons. That's the active ingredient. But if you look at Botox formulation is about 900 kilodaltons, and then Dysport like 300 and 900 kilodaltons.
And what's that change? What's that difference due to? Is that the accessory
proteins?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have the active ingredient, then you have all these accessory proteins, and because you have these accessory proteins, there's research that's coming out saying that people are becoming immune to botulinum toxin. So now I have to give you more so I can get the same result.
Yeah.
And they believe that it's due to the accessory proteins, because Zeamin is over here and its clinical trials are showing that no one is developing an immunity to it. Meaning your body sees it and it doesn't see it as a foreign object. It's not trying to develop an army, aka antibodies, to fight it. Unlike botulinum toxin and Dysport.
So what is the purpose of the accessory proteins? Is that just like a stability, keep it, keep the botulinum toxin stable within the body longer? Is that what it is?
But I mean, I'm not quite sure, because Zeamin is the most stable product.
Interesting.
That's on the market. Yeah. We don't have to keep it. We can keep it in the Sahara Desert, in the heat, and it won't degrade the bacteria. Yeah. Botox, even before you reconstitute it in this powder form, if it's not refrigerated, it becomes really unstable, and it becomes degraded.
Yeah.
Can you develop an immunity with filler?
No, not that I'm aware of.
But is there a small percentage that can be allergic to any of the fillers?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're allergic to gram-positive bacterial strands, apparently you can have there's an association with filler. And sometimes it's not just that. Sometimes it could be lidocaine. If you're allergic to lidocaine, most modern fillers have lidocaine in them. And also some of them, like the technology.
What would happen if you're allergic to the botulinum toxin?
Well, if you're allergic to it, then you don't use any botulinum toxin. You can't use Botox, Dysport, or Zeamin.
What kind of reaction do you get?
Well, you can have an anaphylactic reaction. You can have dyspnea. You can have difficulties breathing, swallowing. Now, this is across all botulinum toxin. And I think there's something to be said about that, because that box warning that you get in the box, there's one for every medication. You pull out Tylenol, there's a chance of liver failure, kidney issues.
If you were to read, you just grab an Advil, and it's so crazy because you grab a bottle of Advil and you read it, and it clearly states, do not take longer than 3 weeks unless, or whatever the time period is, unless under the supervision of a physician. But yet they sell it by the thousands. Right. You could get a bottle by the thousands and everything. Advil for this, Advil for that. They even had their commercials set up that way, where it's like, you got a headache, take a Tylenol or take an Advil. You got this, So it's crazy how some people.
Even Pepto-Bismol, man.
Yeah, everything has a warning label.
You can have there's a toxic dose to Pepto-Bismol, man.
I think even Listerine, you take too much, you can develop mouth cancer. Everything to an extreme, I feel, it can definitely have an adverse reaction.
Medicine is all about numbers. If you any medication, there's always a risk for something happening. Now, the risk is relatively low, which is good. With botulinum toxin, you can. Anybody who has a neuromuscular disorder, like a predisposition to some type of muscular disorder, they're more likely to develop symptoms of dyspnea, dysphagia, difficulty swallowing, breathing.
And where do you feel like botulinum toxins play a role in the future in this industry? Do you feel, as these new techniques are coming out, PDO threads, fillers, how do you feel where does it play its role?
I think it's going to hold its place. I think it's going to hold its place in a multimodal approach of keeping someone looking natural, where it is made to relax the muscles, which is, imagine if my arm is hanging beside me, it's relaxed, right? I'm not doing it doesn't look like I'm curling a dumbbell. I'm relaxed, but there's still tension in that muscle. Yeah. If I had a stroke, you ever seen a stroke patient? They're completely flaccid, and that's what essentially you're doing. You're deactivating that muscle to a certain extent. You don't have to completely make it flaccid.
And how long does this last? This
3 months. 3 months. So that's a good question, because it's FDA approved for 3 months, but there's some people like you, probably maybe 2.5.
And what determines that?
Muscle mass. For males,
you think I got muscle.
And your forehead,
so
bro.
You're saying I'm buff,
like
right?
a pack of hot dogs up there.
So I got the hat.
For females, sometimes it lasts a little bit longer, 3 months, sometimes 4 months. But if you're active, it may.
So metabolism takes a role. How much you work out,
Yeah, lifestyle,
BMI, things like that.
Totally. If you're very active, it may shorten its duration.
So FDA approval up to 3 months. Is there any that last longer than 3 months, or?
There was a study out from Zeamin where they put 100 units in the glabellar, and it's FDA approved it's FDA approved for 20 units in the glabellar. They put 100 units in 0.1. So instead of reconstituting,
very concentrated,
super concentrated, and they have relaxation for 11 months.
Any side effects to that you know of, that you heard of, or anything
Not
like that?
and nothing that I read.
Could it be because that Zeman has,
the super concentrated
form?
I think it was just super concentrated, and there was no acetylcholine being released from the presynaptic cleft.
Yeah.
So I remember you can do Botox many places. You can do it on the underarms for hyperhidrosis.
Yeah. Administering a neurotoxin for the armpits for hyperhidrosis is pretty fun. It's pretty cool because what we do is we know that it blocks the motor component, right, of that muscle, initiating a strong contraction. But we also know that it blocks the sweat glands. So people use it. A lot of businessmen come in,
wear shirts, business shirts.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that. They don't want to get the sweat pits.
Exactly. Or when they're shaking hands, they're putting it in their palms.
Got it.
They're injecting it in their palms so that it doesn't sweat, so it doesn't feel like you're shaking hands with like a wet fish.
I mean, I think one of the procedures that I thought, I was like, man, that's actually pretty cool, is the masseters. I think that's a really cool, how there's some females, you want to give them that jaw slimming, you want to give them the longer face, you just relax the muscles. You don't got to put fillers.
Does that go back? Does it go back just to the way it was?
Yeah, totally. It'll go back. Well, it'll go back. I think it's pretty cool too. And in fact, right behind the masseter muscle is the parotid gland, which is in charge of producing saliva. So if you miss that muscle and hit the parotid gland,
you're gonna be dry mouth.
You're gonna be
cotton mouth.
Yeah, you can have dry mouth. So it's so cool.
For 3 months straight?
It may soften it up. It may not completely. I mean, if you had a concentrated dose,
you guys seen Me, Myself, and Irene?
Sorry, cotton mouth. Yeah. But it's so cool because the way we test for the sweat glands to see if we knocked all of them out. Let's say we did the armpits. We'll draw a grid, we inject, and then they come back in 10 days. They're like, hey, I'm still sweating in certain parts. What we do is we pour iodine on their armpits. We let it dry, and then we put
baby powder.
We put baby powder or flour on top, and then we take a blow dryer, a hair blow dryer,
and just heat it up.
And we heat it up, and you'll see the activation of those sweat glands. You'll see the iodine pour through the flour. It'll turn into dark spots, and you'll know where to go.
Nice.
Someone says they did Dysport doesn't work on them anymore. She tried Zeman for the glabellar. It's been 2 weeks today, and sadly it doesn't work for her either.
So according to some of the research articles that are out there, you may have developed antibodies, right? If you use Botox or Dysport to that neurotoxin, and at that point, if you inject Zeman, it may not work. Because now you still have those antibodies. So what you would have to do is that trough level of antibodies, it would take up to a year for those antibodies to dissipate.
Also, they're not stuck with people not to get Botox forever.
No, it's not forever. They may have to just stay off of it for a while so those antibodies.
Okay, girl, stay off of it for a while.
Give it a year. Give it
a year.
You see how we're required to get the booster shots for the COVID? It's the same thing. You're trying to develop more an immunity to it.
Yeah,
like
keeping those active antibodies.
You're trying to get those antibodies who are like that army. It's like if COVID comes, I'm able to fight it off.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right.
So then you would say wait a year as opposed to adding more to try to get that effect that you want.
You could try with Zeman, but if that doesn't work, then I'll be like, you know what? Save your money. Just wait. And then we'll get you back on Zeman because there's not one. Every clinical trial shows that no one develops an immunity or a delayed secondary response after getting Zeman.
That's a good question.
That's a really good question.
When did you start Zeman?
I was 33.
Okay.
I was 33. Yeah.
Nice.
And these guys would always make fun of me.
Always.
You ain't got no wrinkles.
Always.
Yeah.
That's
baby face.
That's for girls. You got your man card pulled, yo. No, man, I would never do that.
And now they're all now they're all lined up trying to get some Botox.
Yep. And
sorry, Zeman.
Now as you start to get in your later 30s, it's like, yo, You're looking a little old, man. What's up, bro?
Yeah, I just had
and then they come in.
Who finally did it. You know, he just last night he was like, man, it was good. He definitely saw the benefits of it. He felt good about it, and he's ready to do it again. So
yeah, you're seeing a lot of guys.
They come in like, I want to look like you.
Yeah, that's crazy because we're always our worst critic. I'm like, you want to look like me? Damn, I think you look great.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think people are now. What is so cool is that we're seeing couples come in, and they're like, yeah, you know, like couples in their 30s, late 30s, 40s, and they're coming in from out of town. They're making it a vacation, part of their vacation. Okay, we're gonna go get some neurotoxin, some Xeomin or Botox, Dysport, whatever. And you're seeing that because women are looking hot at 50. They look bad. You got little.
Us guys, we got to keep up, man.
You got to keep up, man. You got to keep up.
So that brings me to my next
Hey,
question.
then follow your own advice, Cass. Get your Botox today.
Cass ready. He's ready. I just don't want to. I want to have him beg.
Never have
to get it.
Never have it.
I know it's in the back of his mind. He's always telling me about under eyes.
He's like, I'll start with my under eyes.
Just trying to sleep more, but yeah, we'll see.
Bro, you're not gonna be sleeping anytime soon, man.
That's
Ever since you started working here, you sleep less.
You ain't lying. But we're moving fast and we're growing faster, so it's a fun ride to be part of. Once somebody takes, botulinum toxin, what is their post care? What can they do? What can't they do? Can they go to the sun right after? Can they go to the beach? Can they work out?
Can't put your head down for the first 6 hours.
Why not?
Can't work out. You don't want the I don't know how to say you don't want it to fall down. You don't want to, and especially when you're washing your face.
That's if you're doing your forehead. If you're getting botulinum toxin injected into your forehead, basically you don't want to do anything that's going to cause it to migrate anywhere, right? So if you're rubbing let's say you just got it in your forehead, botulinum toxin is going to do the opposite of what the muscle is supposed to physiologically do. Okay. So if the muscle is supposed to raise the eyebrows, it's gonna relax it.
Drop it.
It can drop it, and if if it starts to migrate too south, then it can cause it to drop, and you can be stuck with a saggy.
So yeah, when you're
brow.
washing your face too, always gonna wash up.
Exactly. So you want to wash away. You don't want to put any helmets, no hats, no headbands, for a good day. Mm-hmm. You don't want to lay your head down where it's
no naps.
What about flying? Like people who fly in and want to just get a procedure done, or they're on vacation.
Yeah, with botulinum toxin, that's fine. But with dermal fillers, depending on where you're injecting it, you should really be cautious about it because that difference in atmospheric pressure alone can cause swelling. Right? Not a big deal, right? But if we have a complication, you only have minutes. You can.
Yeah, you don't want to be stuck on a plane with a complication.
Exactly. If you say, "Oh, I'm starting to see blurry out of one eye, let's land this plane," they're gonna be like, "No, you better fake a heart attack." And then when you get to the hospital, they're not gonna know what to do.
Yeah.
Why don't they know what to do? Do they not have the right equipment, or are they just not trained for it?
It's growing. This industry is growing way faster than the safety can keep up with it. That's why we have a cadaver lab in house, so that other injectors, you can be a competitor across the street. You can come in because we all have a sense of responsibility for the general public.
Absolutely, and that's our goal. Is we want to establish that standard. We want to
This is why we're talking to you about this.
So doctors, nurses, physician associates.
We should show the doctors in the hospital how to deal with this.
Mm-hmm. Everybody who can inject, who's legally allowed to inject, should get hands-on cadavers. Should learn how to break that skin. Should learn how to learn the anatomy. Where all the major arteries.
But the thing is too is that now you say that, like you're saying, like doctors at hospitals wouldn't know what to do. That should be taught now.
They may know what to do. They just won't be able to act fast enough. So like the chance of obtaining unilateral blindness in filler is 0.00001% to as high as 0.05%, depending on which body of literature you're looking at. One of those complications is, we're talking about severe complication. One of those complications is unilateral blindness. If that were to happen, you have 90 minutes to restore blood flow to that eye. You go to the hospital. First of all, you're on a plane. Mm-hmm. You're not gonna land. You're not gonna get to the hospital quick enough. And then when you get to a hospital, even if you went to an eye hospital, there was a new study that I just read. Like they're not fully equipped to respond to hyaluronic acid insult. You need hyaluronidase, and I think it's still in its infancy stages. Luckily, that is so rare. Out of the 2.4 million procedures done, that the chances of that happening is 0.00001%. But it doesn't matter.
But I guess it's a business decision on there. It's one of those things that's like, when they're not going to put a stoplight at an intersection until, unfortunately, there's a car accident and somebody dies. It's one of those things, where the hospital is not going to make moves unless it's profitable for them. Yeah. So we got to make those moves.
What is really cool is that we have
to do research on the house.
Absolutely.
And what's really cool about our educational platform is that we do that research for you and we teach it to you. So we teach you how to deal with complications, not just how to inject. We teach you how to assess and how to fix those. Go ahead.
Can I add on that? Because I think that's a good point. All right. So the latest study that I just read 2 days ago on unilateral blindness, it talked about how the American Society for Plastic Surgery doesn't recommend a retrobulbar injection, meaning an injection behind the eye with hyaluronidase, which is the enzyme that breaks down hyaluronic acid. Right? We know that if you get blindness is because there's a blockage, and it's probably a vessel that's feeding the eye. So there's a theory that if you get your needle behind the eye, you can actually inject this liquid and it'll dissolve it. They don't recommend it.
Why not? Because
there's not enough practitioners that are trained on how to do a hyaluronic retrobulbar injection.
Not yet.
So the risk is higher than of actually doing it. You can cause more damage than the reward.
Exactly.
But we teach you guys how to do it.
Yeah, we did it live. We did it live in front of 200 people.
Nice. And it's recorded.
But it's not. I'm not saying it's recommended, but as an anesthesia provider, I've done many retrobulbar injections because I worked at the #1 ENT hospital in the country at Mass Eye and Ear. But most anesthesia providers haven't done a retrobulbar injection. And sometimes that's the reason why we would do it. We would basically paralyze the eye so a surgeon can work on the eye. It feels so weird.
My eye was like...
Yeah, I did it on Cat.
It's like numb for a while.
Explains
all right, cool.
Yeah, man. I think this was good. I think there's a lot of information. I think this was good for our listeners out there to really educate themselves on these products. It's a new industry. It's exciting. There's a lot of good, but there's also some bad. And I think the more you guys educate, the better decisions you can make to manage your aging process. And that's what we provide. I think we really provide that education so people can make their own decisions.
And if you guys go to avieducation.com, you guys can look up all these lessons that we do offer on the site, so you guys can get a little bit more insight of what's going on.
Absolutely. I know it sounds scary whenever you include blindness, and there are reported cases where the blindness did resolve, but it's still scary for a lot of people. It's a very low risk, but you have to go to a licensed, very skilled practitioner when you decide to get this done.
Yes.
And even when you go into a med spa, unfortunately, it doesn't guarantee that that person is legally able to inject. There was a med spa down the road in Coral Gables where you had a registered nurse who in the state of Florida can inject, and she was injecting, and she caused some damage. And when you go into that med spa, it's a credible, very nice, pretty med spa.
Yeah, it looks nice.
It looks nice.
But then the bones, the inside, and I think that's very important to make, because depending on the state, know the laws of your state, know where you live, know who's allowed to inject, make sure anywhere you go, they're not only licensed, but they have the training. They have a portfolio they can show. So just do your homework.
Well, she had a portfolio. It's just she wasn't able to be injecting.
Yeah.
And she was doing some crazy stuff, man.
Yeah.
Injecting on pregnant women.
Wow.
Injecting, a substantial amount on the nose.
You have to do your research.
You gotta.
Would you say that's reckless at some point? I mean,
super reckless. Yeah. Absolutely reckless. It's not a absolute contraindication on pregnant women, but there's no studies to support the use of it. So they say that unless the outcome benefits and justifies its use, what's the actual wording? Unless the benefit outweighs the risk to the fetus, then you shouldn't use botulinum toxin.
Yeah. And same reason why there's certain medications that you shouldn't take when you're pregnant, or because again, there's just not enough research out there to prove it that it's not necessarily harmful, but there's no research showing that it's not harmful.
Yeah. So, and for instance, this woman injected 3 mLs into the nose.
It's a lot of filler.
That's a lot of filler for the nose. I can do it with 0.3, 30% of 1 ml.
Wow.
She did 3 mLs.
Wow.
That is insane.
Yeah. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful out there. But that's enough from us. So Jacob Sanchez, thank you so much. I'm a board certified registered nurse anesthetist, and you can reach me at Get Refresh One. Katarina Medeiros and our COO, who's badass, and also a very, very good friend of mine, Robert Cepero, from Room 8. Peace. Mad love to you guys.
See you
This
next week.
was the real, the fake, and the filler in between. Peace.
Good.